Freelancing can be a great way to dip your toe into the remote ecosystem, or it can be a profession that consumes all of your time and you can work on different projects that give you a sense of variety and purpose. This week of Remote Weekly Spotlight, I spoke with Ania Krol. She is the freelance coach. She's worked with over 120 people on 15 plus countries. So she's worked with a lot of different types of people in a lot of different types of industries, doing a lot of different types of freelancing. And she was able to share with us some of the process of going from basically 0 freelance clients to building up a freelance business. And that's what it is. Freelancing 2.0 means that you approach freelance as a business, and so many freelancers look at their projects and the different things that they do as these segmented pieces of work that don't formally conduct as a business. So we talked a little bit about the business mindset, sales as a freelancer, how to find clients, the best sites to look at. There's so much interesting, great knowledge in here from Ania, so enjoy this episode of Remote Weekly Spotlight. Thanks for joining. Welcome to another edition of Remote Weekly Spotlight. This is the show that gives you a weekly insight into the people running remote companies and how to get a job at one. Super excited to have Ania here today. Ania, similar to me, created a name that very explicitly says what we do.
Exactly.
I'm the remote job coach. She's the freelance coach. And there's some overlap there in what we're going to talk about today. So Ania, first things, how did you come up with the name, the freelance coach?
It is because I have been coaching people and they appear to be freelancers. Well, in the nutshell, I'm helping freelancers in growing or scaling their freelance businesses. So I'm coaching, so I'm a coach, freelancers, I'm a freelance coach.
And
it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the thing is when I was choosing a name for my coaching identity, it was almost like an alter ego. And I felt like I needed something that more explicitly said what I did because I went by jordanscarroll.com for so long. So I think it's really, really interesting when you go from a name base, because you were on Ania Krol before.
Yeah,
right?
I still have this website,
Same.
but as well, I had some troubles with explaining actually people what I'm doing. So I was like business coach, business mindset coach, coach for freelancers, and then I was like, I'm the freelance coach. And I found the domain and it was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
How? That's what I thought too. I was like, theremote.jobcoach.com is there.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to talk a lot about freelancing today, and specifically from your experience, you've worked with over 120 clients with people in more than 15 countries. So what do you think that breadth of experience with different types of people, with different types of freelancers, different types of nationalities, like what do you think you've noticed? Is there any trends or patterns among people that are trying to become freelancers that you've noticed?
Yes, so definitely they are all, I would say, risk takers. So they are all people that are, one day waking up and feeling that the life that they've been living, it's not exactly that the thing that they want to do.
Right.
And they just take this initiative and want to invest in themselves and change something. So many of them have been doing freelancing, but it didn't really work out because maybe they didn't have business education before, and marketing maybe seems to be more too complicated, too complex for them. But all of them they want change. They wanna work online. They wanna be independent, and many often they are already having some kind of a professional experience. They are architects. They are accountants. They have like a managerial experience in corporations.
Yeah.
But they just woke up one day and said like, this decision that I made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe it wasn't mine. It was because of the society, my family, something right to do. And then they just woke up and said, like, this is not the way to live. I need to change something. Yeah. And freelancing normally comes to their mind, so they are trying to take that path.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I'm wondering, for those of you watching in the comments, one, can you hear us okay? Because I have a mic set up right here. I just want to make sure the mic's working well. And then second, are you a freelancer? Are you someone who wants to get into freelancing? Let us know in the comments like where you're at right now, so we can kind of base some of the conversation around where people are at. Now, when I think about something you said that was super important is that people get to a point where the status quo or whatever it is, they decide that they're living almost for someone else, right? Or based on someone else's decisions, not necessarily their own. Yeah. So I'm curious, when you first realized that you wanted to be a freelancer, and what were your circumstances?
So I had a similar experience, but luckily this experience working for a large corporation was very short. Only after a few months I realized that this is not the place for me. Mm-hmm. I thought that this is the thing to do after you graduate. Yeah, you get a corporate job and you get money, you get payroll, and just wait for the money to come in. And sometimes you do a lot of work, sometimes not. Sometimes you're confused. You're just like waiting for the miracle, things that you enjoy to happen, right? Yeah. And after a few months, my job was so boring. I realized that I need to leave. Of course, large corporations, they are usually trying to keep you by like giving you more money. Yeah. They tried to encourage me to stay, and in the end, after negotiation, I said, this is not my place to be. Yeah. And of course, I took some time off. I started to travel. Many people do that. Because I just needed some perspective. I was like 25, and I needed some perspective to think about what I want to do. And I didn't have a plan B at all. Yeah. Like, I didn't even really think that you can freelance, because it was 2015 or 14, 15. And I didn't know what are possibilities. I just knew that I want to work with a company or with individual that I like, that I understand the business, that I understand the mission, vision, that I can learn something. Yeah, it was my thing. And then, I started to travel around, and people were saying like, hey, why don't you just like start freelancing? And I was like, that's a great idea. But then of course it's like, okay, you just not sit and freelance. You just need to learn a little bit, what is it, right? And what skills can you offer? Yeah. And then I started to dig deeper, and I discovered Upwork, because this is where I started my freelance journey.
Okay. And I do want to talk about Upwork and other platforms for freelancers. Yeah. Before that, you also talked about, you don't just like start freelancing, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's thought that goes into it, there's strategy. Yeah. It's actually a business, right? Of course, yeah. So, but some people don't realize that, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to make the distinction between jobs and freelance. So maybe you can just give like the shortest version, most concise version of what the difference between a job and freelance is.
So when you're freelancing, basically you are self-employed. So you depend on yourself. You are independent, but it means that the amount of money you earn depends on you. Mm. And of course, in the same time, you need to think about things called taxes that people really don't like, especially when we go into this adult world. We are forced to think about those additional things. So our finances, you start to manage your finances, you start to reach for clients yourself. Yeah. So there's a lot of responsibility that goes with this freedom. So this is the main thing, really. I would say you are on your own.
Yeah, and I think that might be part of the misconception of freelance being easy, right? Because I think we get into a trend or pattern of thinking, oh, if I just have a couple of gigs, the companies are paying me money, it's super easy, low lift. But there is truly some strategy and some thought that needs to go into that, not only in the offerings that you have for people, but how you find clients, so lead generation, and how you fulfill, right? Because if you have 5 or 6 different clients and you don't have a fulfillment process, it can be a very difficult thing when you run into someone who wants it some way and another person who wants it another way. So I definitely want to go into some of that. There was a couple of comments here just on people who, Valerie was saying that she's looking for a remote job. And I would also say that, not all, so if we talk about this in remote terms, like remote freelance gigs and remote jobs, like not all remote jobs are freelance, but all remote freelance work could be considered remote jobs in some way. Mm-hmm. Like they're gigs, right? So that's where the gig economy comes into play, where people are focused more on project-based work rather than extended contracts. And I mean a lot of people, especially who are out of the US, who freelancing makes more sense for them, right? Yeah. So I wanted to go over, one of my questions was, what are the ideal situations where someone should freelance?
First of all, I think this flexibility, it's the most important for you. So if you have, if you want to work whenever you want, if you want to work on weekends, if you want to work, from deadline to deadline, not necessarily business hours, maybe you have other responsibilities, maybe you have other things to do, other projects, hobbies, kids, I don't know. If this flexibility is key, is something that is crucial and priority for you, then freelancing is great because you can really find clients that you like to work with and just agree on the terms on your own, really.
Yeah.
So that's the number one thing, because many often when you get a remote job, you work business hours. Many often, not always. Yeah. So this is the number one priority of my clients. They want to be flexible. Sometimes they have other things to do, other responsibilities. Many often they have kids. They want to spend time with them. So this flexibility is really important.
And I see some laws and restrictions that come into play that are different when, say, you work for a company versus you work for yourself and you're contracting with companies. So there's certain things that a company can and can't do when you're a contractor that they could do or could require of you if you are in a job. So I think that's one of the main differences.
Yes, as well.
We had a couple more thoughts here. So one of these was, I've been a photographer freelance for the past 10 years, but always needed to get some extra jobs like babysitting in Canada. But now I want to live in Mexico, my country. And I moved to Playa del Carmen at the end of March. I want to start working online and start a digital nomad life using all my skills. We probably know this person, but Facebook's not telling me who it is. Who is this?
Okay.
So let's take it back to the advice that you might give yourself when you were first starting. After all that you've learned, after all the clients that you've talked to, what would you have told yourself when you were first starting? Like, what's the first step to freelancing?
So basically, I already knew that somehow. I wanted to know, like, you need to know why you want to do it, because sometimes people just go and say, like, okay, I'm going to freelance because it's trendy, because I can be a digital nomad, and this is super like popular thing to do or to think about. But why? Because your whys, your values need to support that, because the beginnings, like, of everything else are going to be hard. There are going to be ups and downs, and sometimes it's going to take longer than you think to get your first client, right? So you need to have really strong motivation and inspiration here, to support you. Second of all, if you go, there are two ways as well to approach that. You can start working as part-time or take a couple of weeks while having another job, or you can go all in, but only when you have some financial parachute. I wouldn't just like quit your job and just like, because you never know. You can't control 100%, what's happening outside. It could be like coronavirus and exactly. So we don't know, right? So it's good to have some financial parachute for 6 to 12 months for you to really 100% focus on that. What's the other thing is that, of course, when you go in, you are super happy to get any client. But of course, because of that, this was my experience. I was taking whatever clients, and because of that, I had a lot of bad experiences. So I was just taking whoever, whatever. And then because of that, clients were not paying on time. They were not experiencing. They weren't sure what they wanted from me. And if your client doesn't know what they want from you, you have a problem as a freelancer. So
it's more often than not your responsibility. Like, it may not always be your fault, but it's definitely your responsibility.
Yes.
And if you look at the root of a lot of the issues of any customer miscommunications or missed expectations, it's often due to whatever it is in your messaging.
Yes. And of course, so pay attention, during your sales calls or your interviews, just pay attention to who you're talking to, right? This person is really serious about that. Because another challenge of freelancers is that, clients are saying, okay, yes, let's do it. And then a week after they disappear. So of course you can't 100% predict that, but you can always pay attention, listen to your intuition and think if this guy is serious. And
I think always creating urgency when you're working with people and this isn't to be pushy with selling things to people. I think one of the misconceptions of like creating urgency in sales is that you're being pushy or you're being salesy. But when it comes down to it, the rate of people that come back to me after a call, for instance, is so low, and I know that I could help them with their problems, that it's actually a disservice for me to not get them, to coach them through, right? To use your coaching abilities to get them through whatever it is. But there's all different types of freelancers, so it's not always going to be a coaching situation. But I think sales for a freelancer is super important.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Like having sales skills. And I'm curious to know, when it comes to skills, what if you have a skill gap? So say that and this is something I deal with a lot, is that people come to me, they have had some type of career that they've done for quite some time. They're trying to get into a new career, different industry, different skill set, whatever that may be. And freelancing often comes up as a good way to address some of the skill gap, as well as courses and things like that. So maybe you can speak to, how to address a skill gap when you're freelancing.
Of course, you can, read things. You can ask people who are already doing that about, like, for some advice, for some tips. You can do some online courses, but there's nothing better than real practice. And as you can practice, you can approach clients and work for free, which is called pro-bono clients. Yes. So some people would say, like, oh, I don't want to work for free. But guys, if you want to really go into that transition, I think this experience is going to be priceless, because you are going to choose your client, you're going to choose the project you're going to work on. So you're going to basically design the experience that will give you this practice. Yeah,
I'm curious, when someone is at the beginning stages of that, and maybe you're offering pro bono freelance work, what is it you should require a client to give you? Because I think there is something, I think you should give them, or have them give you something, right, in that exchange. So what do you recommend?
Definitely. I would always ask my clients, freelancers, to write a small contract, just saying what will you get in return. And there are a couple of things. First of all, commitment, because sometimes clients would say, like, well, whatever is, like, freelancer wants to get some internship, and then they just don't give them enough information or work to do, and then my clients are disappointed. So commitment, so they will give everything that the freelancer is asking, like content or some ideas for blog posts if they want to practice copywriting, and then of course testimonials with their pictures, with their title, that they will, if they like the job, of course, that they can put on their websites. Because as you know, everything is about credibility at the moment, especially in a service-based business. So once freelancers, whatever you do, are having their website or their LinkedIn profiles, they need to build this credibility by having testimonials and just prove that they are legit.
I think the commitment part is big too. You have to really evaluate. Working with someone for free is often a lot worse than working with money, like even from both sides. Because if there's no financial commitment from one side to the other, then it's really easy to dismiss the person because they're trying to learn. So I think that there's a way to kind of evaluate that commitment level. I think that may be setting certain times of the week that you're talking, finding out what kind of organizational project management tools you're going to be using. Anything else that goes along that line?
No, I would say commitment, and exactly the showing how the organization or individual works. Testimonials, and many often after that, if the experience is good, many often my clients are hired by those pro bono clients, or at some point they will come back to them because they will really need them. And well, they want to come back to the person that they know, right?
Exactly. So I think that's a great point, because if you're finding someone to work with for free, do pro bono freelance work, you are obligated to create the best experience you can, and also become invaluable. Because at that point, when you become invaluable to someone, they will pay you. Right? It's like you've done enough for them for free that they can't live without you. So that should always be your goal, I think, in freelancing, is that if you get clients. So how do you find those free clients to start? Let's just say we figured out our why, we've kind of figured out our niche, we recognize the skill gap, we're going to do some free work. How do we find people to work with for free?
I would say I'm always telling my clients to look for, I don't know, list of 20, 30 people or organizations that they really like. Like they are following them, they like what they do, write down their website, create a spreadsheet, maybe first of all find if it's possible to really contact them somehow. And then, well, if they have time, I'm asking them to go through their social media, their websites, and find something, little thing that maybe needs improvement, and write a proposal, an email, really relaxed email, and as well, showing that you are helpful. Like, hey, I'm following up your podcast, or I'm reading your blog posts. I just found out that your link doesn't work, or like leading to Twitter, or I just found out that you're not doing Pinterest, for example, because I'm a social media strategist and I can prepare that for you. Or this is a couple of ideas that I can that I found out and I can prepare for you. Yeah, and this is because those people where you are usually following, they are busy. So you need to write something really powerful in the email. Or direct message. So this is the strategy we are using with my clients to really approach with already some solution. And then what the most important is actually to have an access to them and create this possibility for a call, because there you can sell yourself.
And I think I call those value assets. So you create something that, like you mentioned, is proactive. So you're looking at their website, you're looking at what it is that they have that could be improved. You're sending them an email, like you mentioned, that's not disparaging them, but it's creating an opportunity for, and I think in that email, you want everything to point towards the next step. You give them everything they need to just say yes. Because if you leave it up to them to like do more work for you, that's when you run into the issues of not getting responses. It's the same thing for remote jobs. When you're looking for remote jobs, you're always trying to create these lanes of communication where the person doesn't have to do any more thinking. They just can say yes or no. And even someone saying no to you is a good thing because you've gotten a response. And that's big, is eliciting responses, because a lot of the people that I work with, when we first start working, they haven't gotten responses for months. So getting responses is like, oh, this is progress, right? And then you start getting more confident with what you're doing. I also want to add to where you can find people is in your network currently, right? Like find people in your network, make a list of people who run companies, who are in executive titles at companies, who you're close to, because you can go to them with a fairly informal ask of like, hey, I'm trying to get into this, can I help your company with X, Y, and Z? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do some research and still come up with a proposal in some ways, but when you approach just your friends or family or whoever it is that you can help out there, that's also going to be an easier conversation.
Yes, I agree.
So, okay, so we've got our pro bono. Now we're looking for, like, what's the next step after that? After you've gotten some experience now and you're like ready to charge. So either you're great with working with your pro bono and he or she, proposes you a job, but if not, then I think you are ready to actually create some offering and price it. So create a package, whatever you do. Create an offering and stick to it for a few months. Because another thing I'm seeing as a challenge with freelancers is that they are like promoting to do anything and everything, and it's just they are like, if clients are asking how much is it, how do you do this, you are all the time changing the message. And I'm seeing people are doing this on social media. Certain people that I even know, that they are like, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. It's just the message is they are showing that if you are showing that you can do everything, you can do nothing.
Exactly. And it's not always the case, because I know that there are many people who are super talented and they are experienced, but the subconscious message is that this guy's just like all over the place and just like, being desperate, doing like me, right? You know what I mean, right? So creating an offering, price it. Of course, this is another way, another challenge to price your offer. You need to do some market research, ask people who are doing this, and of course feel good about it. That's the main thing, because most of freelancers, of course, they are underpaid. Yeah, because you feel like, okay, it's my first 6 months of working, then I should charge less.
Yeah.
But if you are going to be charging less, at some point you will discover that you are going to be less motivated, and your work is the quality of your work is going to be worse.
And your clients aren't going to respect you. Like you're gonna attract clients that are looking for the cheaper prices.
Exactly, and the reality is counterintuitive, because we think that clients are looking for people who are charging less, and of course they are. But these clients, you're not looking for them. They are not for you. You're looking for clients who want to pay for what you're offering, right?
Yeah.
And really, when I was freelancing, a couple of times clients came to me and they said, I came to you because your prices were the highest. And I was just curious, because I wanted to talk to you, you might be, super arrogant, or maybe you are super experienced. I just want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And it worked like that, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think obviously the more that you charge, the more you talked about subconscious messaging. This is super important. This is for remote jobs, for freelancing, for communication in general. When you are creating communication with the outside world or with other people, you are always sending subconscious messages to them that they will judge you and evaluate you based on however it is that you present yourself. So in this circumstance, if you are, offering to do everything, you're offering to do it cheap, you come across as very commodity based. You come across as someone who's not an expert. You come across as someone who's replaceable. And it's the opposite that you're trying to actually convey, which is that you're irreplaceable, you are an expert, and that the things that you can do, you're highly competent.
Yes.
We had a question in here, and this kind of goes along with where we're at in the process, which is, how do you start finding the freelance jobs, and how do you know how much to charge? So I've got my offering. I figured out, okay, at least I'm going to package this service and this service. Now, how do I find the people that are going to want that service? And then how do I know how much I'm going to charge for that?
Yeah. So there are different, of course, ways of like client acquisition or lead generation, and everything depends where your client is hanging out online. Yeah. And this is your job to do this research, because as well, many often freelancers are just assuming that their clients are there, and then just they are spinning their wheels and just like being on Instagram and just posting tons of content and just no reply. And then just stay there because they build followers, and it's just for the sake of it, they are doing, things. And you're like, does it bring you clients? Yes or no? No. Find where they are.
Okay, so this research process, like how does that happen?
Research process could be done easily by you. You are creating a small market research, and you are already talking to, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 people who are willing to talk to you, and you are really telling them about your offer. You are not selling them anything, so you are creating this little strategy for your market research, and you are telling them, hey, I'm not going to sell anything. I'm going to tell you about my offer, and I want your honest feedback. And then
that sounds like it would work really well with friends' current network, right? People that potentially are customers.
Yes.
But they're also your friends.
Yes. But I always encourage my clients to do half of people that they know and half of people that they don't know, because first of all, they will be a little bit more honest. Second of all, you will have your first experience with a stranger, to talk to the stranger. And this is something you need to get used to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do I know how much to charge?
Well, the best thing is to see, like, benchmark, see what other people are charging. First of all. Second of all, see, like, is it enough for me or is it too much? Depends where you live, Of course, many people are traveling, so it depends. But you need to really, first of all, do this, see how other people are working, how you feel about it. Really, sometimes you just need to ask yourself, you feel okay with that?
Yeah.
And then just ask people. And sometimes they said, oof, it's too much. Yeah. And you are like asking why? Why is it too much? If I give you this, you want this, you're looking for this. Why is it too much? Oh, because I don't have the budget or something like that. Then you're digging deeper, because these people who are you going to talk to over the phone as a part of market research, they'll give you this information. And sometimes maybe it's too much. Sometimes maybe it's like they like, that's great. Like, I would pay for it. Yeah. And maybe even this means that you should even charge more. Yeah. So you need to just, find it's, at the beginning, it's possible that the price will be not really correct. Yeah, it could be too much, too little. And it's along the practice, along the experience, you're going to probably correct that, and each time, hopefully raise your prices, right?
I've done some various different things too within pricing strategy that I think helped me get to where I'm at. One of those is that decide how much you want to make per hour, and then figure out what in that offering that you have, what's the, if you break that offering up into different segments, you break it up into where the person starts to where their transformation occurs typically, or you have to like think about it, and it may just be a guess to start, but then you times that by your hourly, and then you times another 20% on top of that for taxes and for whatever else you may need to take care of as far as your own expenses, because there will be business expenses that you incur as a freelancer that are not being reimbursed by a company. So you always want to have a little bit of margin for that too.
Yeah, I agree, and it of course applies for consultants and coaches, because and as well you put on top some couple of hours a week, because you might be available for people not only during the coaching session, but beyond that, but as well, some people who I'm working with are virtual assistants, social media managers, project managers, so they are really strictly hourly based. So they are like, okay, 10 hours a week. How much should I charge? Yeah, that's the thing. And then you can of course wrap it up in packaging, which is as well something that people practice as well.
I'm curious. We talked a little bit about where to find freelance work, but like, what are those best platforms? Because I know there's Upwork, but Upwork is super competitive, right?
Yeah.
So is there other options, and like what should someone do, especially if they're in like a specialty niche, or like, I don't know, what do you how do you guide people on finding those platforms?
Yeah, so I built my freelance business on Upwork. So there are people who hate it or love it, and I would say like I'm in the middle.
I love using it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like right now I'm just getting invitations there, like so I'm just like, I don't have to look for jobs as a coach, right? Before I was a VA, then I was a project manager, and of course it developed, and I needed to put a lot of effort in order to build my profile there. However, there are ways to. It's the same. If you look at Upwork in the same way as looking at outside of Upwork, you need to write effective proposals in the same way. Right.
Yeah.
So and you need to prepare your profile as your profile on LinkedIn or on your website in a very encouraging way. And people usually say, "Hey, I'm doing this by." Yeah. And it's like everybody says that. You need to encourage people, be persuasive to reply to your proposal. And this is what I'm teaching as well my clients. And you can use Upwork. There's Freelancer. There's TapTal, which is another one which is very like tech based. But I like
freelancer.com.
Yeah, freelancer.com. I would say it's like Upwork, but it's easier because there are less people. But as well, I'm not 100% about the amount of offers in terms of like a certain profession. I'm not sure. So Upwork has more opportunities, but of course you need to spend some time there, and additionally you need to right now pay for applying for jobs there since last year, which is not a lot, but I think this is a good thing because it makes people think twice before applying for certain job offer. So before you could see 50 people apply for it, now you can see 20. Yeah. So even though you pay on average, I don't know, $50 cent, like. It's not a lot, or maybe $1 for one job. You still like, okay, this is money. I don't want to apply. So maybe some other person would take this job. Yeah, it's a little bit, they are playing a little bit here with the
they're giving it a barrier to entry that I think it sounds like it was needed.
Yeah, I think so. And of course, you can get clients out of these platforms using social media, or using cold emails, cold calls. They're not like pricing that much, but cold messages, cold emails, direct messages, and of course social media. And like LinkedIn it's a great platform to connect with people as well, because people are there to connect. Right? basically.
So take me through social media. So is it just LinkedIn, or do you use other platforms too?
You can use other platforms, depending, as I said, where your clients are hanging out.
So that seems to be the biggest step, is like, where are your clients hanging out? But I like, again, I'm finding it hard to, like, if I don't even have people to talk to yet, like how I find people to talk to or that are going to be willing to talk to me, like that first step still kind of feels a little bit fuzzy to me if I was like a freelancer.
Yeah. You just need to, first of all, there's another part which is really important, is networking. Offline, online. Yeah, all offline right now. It's like tricky, but you can network online and you can really meet people really and talk to them and, you know, find out what they are doing. And many often you can, of course, use LinkedIn to target those people. You don't have to pay anything, really. You can look for people who could potentially be your clients. Well, thinking about, for example, virtual assistants, because many of them are coming to me. They are working, they have their niche, like, for example, like female entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. There are many on LinkedIn, and you can just like, you know, have a genuine conversation and saying that this is what I'm doing. I can help you with that. Would you be interested? Of course, you need to know that you need to hear a lot of no's before you will hear yes. Statistically, but you just need to go there and try to talk to people. Yeah, and don't be afraid to just say about what you do, what you can do, what you want to. This is the first step, and this is the biggest barrier that people are facing. They are like, okay, I did the course, I did this, I did that, no clients. And I'm like, it's not luck and hope sales system. It's you going there and telling them about yourself. Yeah. How can they know about you?
People have trouble talking about themselves.
Yes.
And especially if it's new to you and you don't feel confident yet in what you're offering, you haven't actually gotten results for someone.
Yes.
It's very difficult. So that's why at the beginning that free work is really great, because then you start to learn more about the transformation of the client.
Yes.
And that gives you more confidence.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about Freelancing 2.0. What does that mean?
Yeah, I just like, I came up with this and I was like Googling and nobody was talking about it. So it's quite kind of controversial. Maybe somebody will tell me that it's bullshit, but for me, it is looking at freelancing in a different way. Exactly the way as we were talking about, as having your little business. Yeah, because many people, not only people who are not freelancing, they think that freelancers are like poor, or they just, this is not a real job. And I want to really not only educate, but as well encourage people to think about it as your little business. And maybe in the future you want to have your bigger business and you want it to grow, but really to learn more about business itself and about sales and communications, because this is something that many freelancers lack. They have talent, they know how to do their job, but they don't know how to get their job. And because the market is more competitive and there are more and more people wanting to work online, which is normal, it's amazing, right? We are both working online and it fits our personality and lifestyle, and we can be, you know, more flexible. It's normal and competition is great. You just need to be a little bit always ahead of others and learn how to get clients yourself and focus on that and start as soon as possible, because many people are doing online courses, reading a lot, reading books, self-help books, and still nothing. Yeah. And I'm like, just reach the people, start doing this, take the courage, like get the courage. Yeah. Because confidence is not, you're not born with confidence. Yeah. Like I was not confident, you know, getting my first clients. I was just like mumbling over the phone. I didn't know what to say, how to say. And it's just, you know, you have the 5 calls, 10 calls, 15 calls, they say no, they say yes, and then you are building it. This is just by practicing, yeah. And I want to encourage people in this modern freelancing to really think about sales as not something that it's super, because a lot of people are, when they hear sales, it's like, oh, I don't like it. Sales, it's like, you know, like guys who are going from doors to doors and selling you vacuum cleaners or something. They think about like that, right? And it's like, if you want to have sustainable business, you need to reach the people. And if you're just growing your business, you need to make people, you need to show that you are there, that you are doing this, and build your brand, and step by step, and just reach the people and show what you can do.
And that you're not afraid of vacuums.
Exactly.
Carry on the vacuums.
So everybody needs vacuums, right?
There's a lot of stuff to unpack there. So one of those would be, what's the biggest mistake you see freelancers, whether it's within business or sales, or like what area do you see is the part where it provides the most challenges based on the 120 plus people that you've worked with?
Like I said, this is the thing that they are sitting and waiting.
Okay.
It's waiting for something to happen.
Gotcha. So they've created their profile. It's
Yes.
like, I've got my profile out there, so where are all the people reaching out to me? And
Yes.
it's like, oh no, you gotta be proactive in reaching out to other people.
Yes, and of course, creating procrastination actions, which is creating another ebook, creating another Facebook post. It's like creating this, being busy.
Yeah.
Which doesn't, of course, people interact with you and it's cool, and being creative and creating content is amazing, but it's just a part of business.
Yeah.
It's not the whole business for most of us.
I think, yeah, that's such a good point too, because I think we can often just spend so much of our time doing that busy work that feels good. In my world, that's resumes. Like, people love to spend time on resumes. They love to reorganize their resume. They love to use a new template. They love to re-stuff keywords in it. And it's all in vain of getting past the ATS system, which qualifies people and basically disqualifies the larger portion of people.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yo, the way that we want to do this is not so that we're fighting this ATS system. We want to send our resume directly to a human, so we don't have to deal with that. And if you're sitting there and working on the resume, you're not working on getting contact with the people.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those things. And I think the industry of career help especially is very fond of helping people with resumes, because it's something you can charge for that's tangible.
Yes.
And you can get like a very kind of quick hit of like dopamine and like, oh, like this looks so much better. Oh, I'm going to go send it to another 50 jobs and not get responses still.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that, but that's just what that reminded me of.
Yeah, to spending time on these things, creating this being busy feeling, but actually you are not progressing because you are not reaching to people, and that's what you need to do.
Best tip for selling that you have as a freelancer, like on the actual calls or part of the sales process that you think usually needs a lot of work for people?
Well, best tip. I would say, well, you can create some sales script at the beginning. I'm talking more of the coaches and consultants, because sales calls are really important. Because usually if you are a freelancer just starting, many often clients are just showing the job offer and you're like, they know what they want, right? But you can prepare yourself for the sales call, or you could say interview. If you are a freelancer and want to work for a certain person, do a lot of research, because the more information you have, the more power you have. Prepare to be prepared for a negotiation, because especially when you are a freelancer and charging for an hour package, business owners, they negotiate. This is something that is a part of business, and they might just surprise you by saying I don't have this budget. What about this? Why don't we just go and you will charge not $50 but $40? How does it sound? Yeah. And many often people are surprised by that, and they agree for that. And in the end, they are not satisfied with that. And negotiation is something that both sides need to be somehow happy, 80%. Yeah. So be prepared for something that somebody is going to have objections because of your pricing or something else. Yeah. Don't be surprised. Sometimes people just do it because it's part of the business. Yeah. In terms of course, coaching and consulting, of course, you need to be prepared for other objections. People are, I don't have money.
Don't have time, don't have money.
Don't have time, don't have money. Yeah. So think about how potentially your client can react, and how would you react, and how would you respond, so that you are not that much surprised. You will be surprised. That's always the case, and every time less and less. And as well, another thing that it's maybe cliche, maybe not. don't read too much and prepare too much 5 minutes before the call, because you're going to find out that you don't know something or you're not prepared and you're going to be more stressed. So just chill out, drink water, meditate, deep breath, and just enjoy the show.
Yeah, and I think one part that I really liked about that was go through what those objections are going to be in advance, right? So most of the time you're going to know what it is that someone might have a problem with, and it's going to be tied back to money or time 99% of the time. Some of the time it's like, oh, well, I got to talk to my husband or wife, or there's other things too, but most of the time you're going to get the same types of objections. So you need to know how to answer those ahead of time and practice those with another freelancer. Find another community of freelancers, find a coach, find someone who can help you through that, because building that structure for yourself is going to take some time, and you're going to get different reactions from different types of people. I'd also recommend, this is why it's really good to have different levels of your packages for people, but stay firm on those. And don't agree to something that's outside of your intuitive yes to wanting to work with someone. If someone can't meet you where your offer is and they want a discount, or they're looking to negotiate that, I recommend changing the scope. So instead of changing and discounting the package, it's moving them down the ladder to a different scope of what you're working on. So if you're working 40 hours, if you're working 20 hours on someone's project a week, and they say, okay, well, we can only pay this much, then it'll be like, okay, well, I can work 10 hours per week. It's going to be a longer time before we get to the end goal, but that meets your budget. Is that something you'd be willing to do? And that more so maintains your integrity, as well as gives them the option to meet their budget. And then once they've been, a lot of people will just say stuff like that just so that they can try to get a discount. So if you come back very confidently, like, oh, I don't offer discounts in that, but we can, reduce the scope of the project. And then a lot of times people come back and say, oh, no, it's okay. Like, I'll find it. I'll make it work, but I need it done by this time. So and exactly. This is what I'm telling my clients for service providers. Ask for the budget. If you have a nice call and you feel that this client is really nice to work with, and you believe him that he doesn't have really that much, just ask for the budget. What's your budget? And then we can create something for this budget, exactly, changing the scope. As well, sometimes somebody's surprising you by additional questions or additional maybe skills or support that they need. You can and they really want to work with you, but you don't know the answer. I would just say that give me 1 hour, I will send you a proposal. Don't make a decision, just spontaneously, especially when you're at the beginning, because you might make some error and you will not like what you agreed to. So I was doing that as a project manager. I was like, give me 1 or 2 hours. I'm going to send you a proposal and I'm going to think it through. And people like it as well, because you can wrap it up in a nice PDF and send it to them personalized, and they're like, okay, cool. I think also the more before the call you can get their qualification. Like, you don't want to get on the phone with someone who's not qualified. And when I mean not qualified, I mean doesn't have a budget, doesn't have a need to move. So when you get on the call with people who are quote unquote tire kickers, or they just want to have a conversation with someone, that's going to cost you your money and your time. So what kind of questions can you ask in like an application? So when someone books a call with me, for instance, they go through a series of questions. And part of that is aimed to get a sense of if they're willing to spend money for themselves. And and you may not have to always ask the budget question if up front you get them to either talk about how big of a problem this is for them, or how much they're willing to invest. So some of those things can be done beforehand too. Which I think is important to call out, because then your sales calls become more about the actual transformation that you can help them with, rather than the money. Because if you're constantly finding yourself negotiating your prices and like that's where the conversations are going, then there's something in your messaging that is finding people that are so intent on finding the lowest price, right?
I completely agree. I mean, in the world of like coaching and consulting, this is the case that you need to qualify people before, and I'm sure you can do it as well in other areas like, I don't know, graphic design or web development. You can do it as well. And as well, remember that sometimes people just can't afford your services, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
You just say like, well, we just probably can't find anything together here. And sometimes you just don't like the conversation because you feel that you don't want to work with this person. So you can just say, well, that's it. It's just life goes on, and you're going to find another
one. Send them some resources on their way. I think one of the best things you can do for yourself is detach your emotions and your like any sort of attachment that you have towards each person that you talk to becoming a client. Detach that expectation. Because the more expectations you build around this conversation has to work, this conversation has to be the person, that will show. And we talked a little about desperation. We talked a little bit about, being pushy, and that will come through. And people will tell that you're not being authentic. You're not sitting in your zone of genius, and you're not there to help them. You're there to make money. And I think, at least when I look at why my job, or the way that the job that I've created for myself is so fulfilling, is because I know that if I go on a call, that person's going to leave the call better. If they become a client, yes. If they don't become a client, yes. That conversation has made them better.
Yes.
And so I think as a freelancer too, you want to take that approach, although you also don't want to put a Band-Aid on what it is that they want to solve. So if you get on a conversation with somebody, and this is like a coaching thing as well, but you don't want to coach or give away the Band-Aid to the solution. And what I mean by that is, if something is going to make them think that they've solved their problem, but it actually hasn't, then you're doing them a disservice. So that would be, for me, that would be telling someone on a call, here's what you do first, here's what you do second, because I can't physically do that in an hour.
Yeah.
I can't tell everybody what exactly to do to get a remote job, right?
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up. I know I'm
I agree.
rambling.
I can't as well. Like I'm as well as the same as you. I have strategy calls where we decide together if we want to work together.
It's always a mutual thing. You as a freelancer, you're not beholden to someone just because they want to work with you. Doesn't mean you have to.
No, some people are not ready, and you don't want to work with people who are not ready, because it will be a struggle for everybody.
Mm-hmm. What last words do you have for people on freelancing? Maybe what they may not know about freelancing, maybe if they've never done freelancing, what to expect. Like, what would you say to them?
I would say that if it's on your mind for a while, then go for it, because you just need to make a decision. Many people are thinking about it. Some people are coming to me for a couple of years already, and just coming with little questions, and they are still not making decisions. And I would say, make a decision, yes or no. It's fine to say no as well to this opportunity, and say like, hey, just do something else, and then come back, write it down in your Trello for backlog, and in 2 years, and just come back to it in 1 or 2 years. But make a decision, because if it's on your mind for a while, it means that it's serious. Like, maybe it's a priority, but you didn't pursue it, or you're just scared, so don't do it. Maybe it's not the right time, but if you feel, deep inside that it's something that you want to do, just start now by, asking somebody who has been doing that. Approach a coach if you want to invest in yourself, if you can. For me, I invested in coaching as well, in my business coach, and it helped me a lot, because I was stuck at some point. I didn't know where to go, and for me, it's nothing better than having support from somebody who has been doing this several years more than I, and showed me the path, and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. Thanks to that, I got business skills, experience, sales skills. That's the most important, I think, in my coaching career. But as for help, it's okay. And investing in yourself, it's the best thing to do. It's better to invest in yourself than in somebody else's company.
And if you're at that beginning stage and you haven't, you're in that yes, no, I don't know kind of stage, taking one step in the direction of doing it will tell you pretty quick.
Yeah.
right? If you invest in a coach, and I have 3 coaches as well, be very skeptical of any coach who doesn't have coaches.
Yeah.
I would say that. But if you find an opportunity where someone can help you accelerate the process, start that process with them, because it will soon not only illuminate the strategy and give you a path, but it will give you an actual feedback loop of like, oh, do I actually like this?
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing people are scared of, is like, what if I take the wrong step? Well, not taking any step is the wrong step.
Yes.
Most of the time, because that is creating a decision. And whether or not you're committed to doing something or not doing something, you are still committed to something.
Yes.
So,
yes, I agree.
Ania, thanks so much for joining me today. What's
Pleasure.
your website, so we can put that on here at the end? Your website?
At www.freelance-coach.com.
Freelancecoach.com. So if you're looking for more information to get connected with Ania, I'm assuming this is the best place to reach out to you.
Yes, yes. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Maybe we can comment.
Yeah, I'll have. Yeah, and we're on LinkedIn Live right now. So, and I tagged you in the post, so should be good there. And then, yeah, if you're looking to get in touch with Ania about her freelance services, that's the place to do it. Thank you, everybody, for joining today for another episode of Remote Weekly Spotlight. Keep wandering. You are not lost.
Bye-bye.